So I just played the demo for the Precinct, and let me tell you, it's surprisingly awesome. Imagine an old-school top-down open-world game, kind of like the first GTA, but instead of being a criminal, you're the cop. Now, normally I'd think playing as a cop might be kind of lame compared to, running around causing chaos. But this game gives you so much freedom to bend the rules, it doesn't even feel like you're playing the good guy all the time. You can drive like a maniac through the streets, crash into fences, plow through walls, and just kind of do whatever you want with almost no one to stop you. It's weirdly satisfying, especially when you're barreling down the road with 80s synth blasting, just looking for the next bit of trouble to get into. The whole vibe of the Precinct really nails that gritty neon-soaked 80s cop movie feeling. You're in this fictional city called Averno, and it's got everything. Rainy streets lit by flickering neon signs, sketchy alleyways, and that classic feel of a city that's seen better days. You play as Nick Cordell Jr., a rookie cop fresh out of the academy, and it doesn't take long before you're thrown right into the action. It's not just about writing tickets or patrolling the streets either. One second, you're in a fist fight with a random thug. The next, you're calling for backup, laying down spike strips, or even taking control of a police chopper to track down a getaway car from above. There's this whole setup where if a suspect ditches their car, they might make a run for the subway, and it's up to you to keep up. The game basically gives you all these cool little tools to handle situations, and every chase or showdown ends up feeling different from the last. What's funny is that this game actually made me think of what GTA could have been if things had gone differently. Before Grand Theft Auto became the iconic crime game we know today, Rockstar, well, back then they were DMA Design, actually started out with a game idea called Race and Chase. The idea was to play as a cop chasing down criminals, keeping order in a city instead of causing chaos. But they scrapped that idea, and obviously the rest is history, with GTA becoming all about the criminal's life instead. So playing the Precinct actually feels like a bit of an alternate reality, like here's what it might have looked like if Rockstar stuck to their original plan. But honestly, it wouldn't be fair to just call the Precinct a GTA clone, even though the top-down camera does give off a bit of that GTA Chinatown Wars vibe. This game isn't just another copy of the crime sandbox idea. It's got a lot more in common with games like True Crime New York City, if you remember that one. True Crime came out just a year after GTA San Andreas, and while it didn't get the same legendary status, it had this gritty cop storyline and graphics that actually looked pretty amazing at the time. The Precinct gives me a similar feeling, like it's taking that classic crime game formula, but turning the focus toward enforcing the law instead of breaking it. But let's be real, it's also not forcing you to be a perfect cop either. You're still in control of how you want to handle things, whether that means sticking to protocol or, going a little rogue when the situation calls for it. You guys know me well enough by now to know that I care a lot about graphics, sometimes maybe even too much. And with the Precinct, I'll admit, I went in with pretty high expectations. From what I've seen so far, the game does a fantastic job of creating an immersive, gritty look that feels both stylized and impressively realistic. It kind of resembles that GTA 4 atmosphere. First, let's talk about the interiors. Now, while I think the ambient occlusion effects are laid on a bit thick here, making some indoor shadows a little intense, I'll cut them some slack, since it seems to be the style in games of this genre. Plus, the atmosphere they're going for kind of lends itself to a darker, moodier look, so I get it. That said, once you step outside, that's where the graphics really shine. The outdoor visuals are genuinely well done. Every element just feels considered, whether it's the subtle textures or the lighting that manages to hit just right without getting in your face. I have to give special mention to those puddles on the ground that look just wet enough to give the city a realistic feel without turning every street into a mirror. It's refreshing to see a game where the effects don't feel overdone. Everything, from the rain-slicked streets to the reflections on neon signs, combines to create this really cohesive cinematic quality that pulls you into Averno's world and makes you feel like you're in the middle of some 80s crime thriller. But it's not all perfect, no sugarcoating here. I did experience a few FPS drops here and there, even dipping down to the 40s at times. And keep in mind, I'm running this on an RTX 4090. You'd expect things to be butter smooth at this level, but I get it. It's a demo, not the final release, so I'm not going to get too critical about it yet. They've still got time to fine-tune things, and honestly, with this level of detail in textures and lighting, I can see why they might still be working on optimizing optimization. So fingers crossed they managed to polish up the performance before the full release, because with everything else looking this good, a bit more smoothness would really seal the deal. The map in the Precinct isn't huge. Don't expect sprawling landscapes or endless highways. Instead, we're looking at 2 smaller islands, which might sound limited, but I'm not gonna lie, it works for what the game is going for. According to one of the developers on Steam, there are no plans to expand the map. They said, "It's a very dense map, much like a real city. There's always something going on. We also don't have the art resources of a big company like Rockstar or Ubisoft. We have 2 guys to do the city, the characters, the vehicles, and the UI. So yeah, it's a smaller team and they're clearly focused on quality over quantity. And for me, that's fine because as a city cop, you wouldn't be patrolling an entire city anyway. Typically, you're assigned to a precinct or a specific beat. So this more compact map makes sense with the game's lore. Averno feels dense and full of life, even though you're only covering a portion of it. There's this sense of a larger city out there, but your focus stays right where it should be, in your own zone, and that's a win in my book. If you're on the fence about the Precinct, I definitely recommend trying out the demo. It's quick, around 30 minutes or so, and it's just enough to let you know if this game's going to click for you or not. Personally, it's already got me waiting on the full release. It's exactly the kind of game that fills the gap while we're all holding out for GTA 6. And nope, that's not an ad. Nobody paid me to say that. The demo gives you a nice preview of the mechanics and variety in the gameplay. Right from the start, you get a quick introduction and then you're off to grab a hot dog. It's a pretty chill start until the next thing you know, you're racing to the scene of a bank heist. There's a quick shootout with some gangsters and then you're after the rest of the robbers in a high-speed chase. It's intense, but just as you're getting used to the action, the tempo shifts and you're back on the streets, handing out parking tickets for bad parking jobs. It sounds low-key, but the pacing actually works, giving you a breather before things pick up again. Also, props to developers for actually delivering on the driving physics, because let's be real, indie open-world games can have pretty underwhelming car handling, but from what I've seen in the demo, it's surprisingly solid. Both high-speed chases and more chill law-abiding drives through the city feel smooth and responsive. I was playing on a controller, and I'd recommend doing the same because I've seen a few people mention that playing on mouse and keyboard feels way less natural. The controller really lets you feel the weight of the car in turns and during sudden stops, which makes those chases even better. And getting back to the demo story, soon enough you're chasing down some guys caught tagging walls in broad daylight. I mean, graffiti in the middle of the day? Bold move, right? And just when I thought I'd seen everything the demo had to offer, they throw in a helicopter mission. You get to search for a wanted vehicle from the air, tracking it down and guiding the ground units as they close in. And yeah, with that soundtrack pulsing in the background, the whole thing feels cinematic and just plain fun. As cool as the Precinct is shaping up to be, there are still a few features I'd love to see added. For example, while the demo lets us go on car chases and hand out parking citations, there's no option yet to deal with smaller moving violations, like pulling over drivers for running red lights or speeding. This came up in a question on the game's subreddit, and the devs explained that they haven't included those minor traffic offenses because the game's camera angle makes it tricky to spot those kinds of details. They did mention, though, that if enough people want it, they might look into adding it after launch. So it's something that could come down the line if there's demand. And before anyone worries that the game might just be a series of scripted missions like in the demo, the devs have clarified that there will be a lot of random callouts, which I'm guessing means procedurally generated crimes. So, while you're on patrol, you won't just be following a set mission list. You'll be reacting to things happening around you, which keeps the gameplay dynamic and unpredictable. Before we wrap up, let me know what you guys think about the game. Are you planning to check out the demo? And do you think this game has the potential to stand out? I'm curious if the whole idea of playing as a cop in a dense, gritty city setting has you interested, or if you think there's still something missing. Let me know in the comments down below.